Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. My name is Jay Van Smith. I'm the executive producer of the IMI Right Now television show. IMI is a part of the Indiana, Michigan, Illinois Tri-State Corporate Industry Technology Alliance, USA Incorporated. We represent a new and advanced perspective serving youth, disabled, seniors, and veterans. IMI is advocacy. IMI is informative. IMI is news. IMI is cultural empowerment. IMI is jobs, and IMI is inspirational. We're your source for corporate industry and technology alliance. You may tune into us on Mondays at 6 p.m. from 6 to 7 on Charter Cable Channel 189 and Saturdays at 5 p.m. Charter Cable Channel 189. Again, we are delighted to have the distinguished Executive Director of the Youth Homes Incorporated, the parent company of the Youth Crisis Project, Mr. Jeff Bumberg. I'm sorry, Mr. Jeff Birnbaum. Birnbaum.
Yeah.
I apologize.
That's okay, don't worry.
Thank you. And again, if you just which we'll be receiving you in a moment. I would just like to again expound a little bit on the Right Now Television Digital Satellite Broadcast Network. Here at Right Now TV, where our emphasis is on empowering youth, seniors, disabled, mental and physically challenged, those with special needs, veterans, all branches, and those in uniform. We are your television, and we are here to provide you with the resources and the access and digital satellite broadcast medium designed to meet the challenge of the 21st century. And at this moment, without any further delay, I would just like to add we are honored to have our distinguished co-host, Mrs. Francois White, who is the author of the Little Toolbox. The Little Toolbox by Francois White. It deals with anxiety, anger, depression, and guilt. Catch your teacher and shut it up. And she's won several awards in the International Book Awards finalist, the 2011 New York Book Festival honorable mention, and the 2013 Paris Book Festival honorable mention. So again, we are delighted and honored to have her as a member of the Right Now television team, who will be conducting the interview with our distinguished guest momentarily. And again, I'd just like to add, if you have a talent, if you have a skill, if you like to just come on the air and essentially toot your horn, feel free to be our guest at Right Now Television. From our perspective, the perspective from our lens at Right Now TV, an overview of Montana is artsy, stately, and majestic. We're a digital satellite broadcast network, a wholly owned nonprofit 501c3 subsidiary of IMI Tri-State Alliance. We're located at MCAT Studios, 500 North Higgins, in Missoula, Montana, on Channel 189 Charter Cable. Again, without any further delay, I'd like to bring our, well, first of all, I'd like to welcome Mr. Jeff Birnbaum to the show.
Thanks. Nice to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We're honored to have you here.
Yeah.
Give us tell us a little bit about the Youth Crisis of the Youth Homes Inc., sir.
Sure.
If you will.
So we've been around since 1971. Started out by providing group care for teenagers, and have built an array of services since that time that ranges from adoptions to in-home services to try to keep families together. So we work with a lot of different kinds of services and a lot of different kinds of youth and a lot of different kinds of families on an average day, if there's an average day. We work with over 300 youth and their families. And we operate in western Montana. We have operations in Kalispell, Polson, Ronan, Missoula, Hamilton, and also Helena. So we've spread our wings a little bit, but we're still really committed to serving each kid one at a time.
Marvelous, marvelous. Sir, if you will, tell me, when was the origin or conception of the Youth Homes, Inc.?
Yeah, 1971. It was actually at the cusp of a movement to deinstitutionalize kids. You know, you've talked about a lot of populations, and you know, if you go back to that time in our culture, all of those people were in institutions set away from the community. And you know, we talk about the number of nonprofits. In terms of human services, those are all about bringing those folks home. And that was the Youth Homes in '71. That was Opportunity Resources in 1971 for the developmentally disabled, for mental health, for people with mental illness. So we're proud to be a part of that movement. And so what we try to do over those years, I'm a baseball guy, so I would argue that somebody invented the one-size-fits-all baseball hat.
Yes.
And I would argue no one looks good in those. And that there's a reason people buy fitted hats. And so I'm committed to families having a fitted hat, that they can find the service that fits their family, the youth that fits that youth, and provide those services. And we have, you know, today I'm literally an icon that just represents the work of the people who work for the youth homes, because they're there right now doing the work we're going to talk about.
Well, Jeff, I want you to know you have my blessings, our wholehearted support. We applaud the efforts that you all are doing with our youth.
Thank you.
And I was honored to know that there is such an organization that's on the front line, advocating in defense of our troubled teens. It was a time in all of our lives. I imagine we went through that phase.
Yeah.
And they didn't turn their back on us, and I don't think we should turn our backs on our youth. No. And for those reasons, I think we applaud you for the commitment that you have to the service of our young people. And any way we at Right Now Television can participate or partner in supporting your organization, we would be honored. Are you all, by any chance, a public, a nonprofit?
Yes, we are.
Great, super. Yeah. And I imagine at some point in time during your interview, you've got some benefits or some initiatives going forward. We would sure be interested in hearing about it. And again, any way we can be of service or be able to contribute with in promoting you all and the great work that you're doing, we would be honored. What is the address, sir, to the Youth Homes, Inc.?
So the office itself is at 550 North California Street, right off Broadway. Post office box 7616, Missoula, 59807.
Super. And do you accept volunteers?
Yes.
And contributions?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, so how would we do that? How would a person apply to come in and roll up their sleeves, and what is the process there?
Sure.
To be a part of.
The best thing is to call the Youth Homes at 406-721-2704.
Marvelous, marvelous. And let's say for those who have a big heart, who would prefer to write to support you financially, how would they go about doing that, sir?
Well, there are two things, of course, if they want to talk about making a donation, because I think a lot of new donors like to invest in something,
yes.
not just send money to you, but want to do something we specifically do that they're interested in. We find
yes.
a lot of donors now that they want to give to part of what we do, and that's great.
Yes.
So they can call us at 721-2704, or if they just want to send a check, they can send it to our post office box, 7616 Missoula 59807. If they do that, they would write the check to Youth Homes Incorporated.
Yes, Youth Homes Incorporated.
Right.
Give me that address, P.O. Box again, sir.
7616 Missoula 59807.
Marvelous, marvelous. And at this moment, we're going to pause. Afterwards, we're going to bring forth our distinguished co-host, Mrs. Francois White, the author of The Little Toolbox, to expound a little bit on the Little Toolbox and to conduct the interview with the distinguished Executive Director, Jeff Birnbaum, of the Youth Homes Incorporated. Pardon me.
Thank you.
There we go. Hi.
Hi, Jeff. I am very excited to question you. And also, I would like to start with an example. So, you have a family in crisis. What are crises? Because some people might think that that's not a crisis, and you might see it as a crisis. So can you let
Sure.
us know what?
Sure. So let me give you the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So when the opportunity came to apply for and develop this project, the Youth Crisis Project, I went to Providence Hospital here
Yeah.
in Missoula, where our mental health services are, and I asked Pete Snyder, and I talked with the mental health professionals they work with, and we found that there were 120 families who had arrived at the emergency room
Wow.
to hospitalize their kids who didn't really qualify, not because of money, but because of the level of disturbance, and were unable to admit their kid, but there was definitely an issue. So they wound up going home without any help, without any information, and that triggered this, we need to do that. So what brings them there is, I think you could probably, most people could guess, that their kid's suicidal, the kid's cutting on themselves, the kid's overusing, using drugs and alcohol, the kid is aggressive at home, got in a fight with their brother or their sister or their mother or their father, or they just have sort of worn out by trying to get the kid to do the things they think they should be able to get their child to do. And they come there, as they do often when they call people all over town trying to get help, and they can't find it. And so by the time they get to that, they wind up showing up at emergency rooms trying to hospitalize their kid. So it made sense to me that, how about if we went back earlier and made it easier for people to find services so that they don't have to go so far before they can get help. So that was kind of what made us go forward with the Crisis Project. And we were helped by the fact that there was money available through the Mental Health Trust, through the Children's Mental Health Bureau and state government to allow communities to apply for a grant to develop capacity in the mental health system to deal with crisis for families whose kids are seriously emotionally disturbed. So that's kind of how the project got its legs.
All right, and so if I'm gonna talk about another example. So one kid doesn't have any problem, but the problem is because of the mom or the dad. Same thing, could be using drug or be violent. Do they qualify too? Or does the kid have to be the one with the mental problem or the drug addiction? Or
I think often funding is very much in a silo, and so you're sort of inside or you're outside. I think go back to what I think the youth homes or the system needs to be, or is it needs to be more seamless. In other words, we need to be able to, whatever people come forward with is, and we think it's reasonable for the community to respond, we should be able to respond. So it may not, so the idea, I don't know if the website's gonna get up there, but we have so we have a website, and I think we can expand on the website that addresses those things. It'll address, look, if this project is designed for families who are struggling with seriously disturbed children. It doesn't mean they haven't played a big role in that. So, and we can help them in that way, but to be honest, the youth homes, for us, for example, is we work with kids. Obviously, when we work with kids, we have to work with adults. But if the problem is solely in the adults' issues, then we have to help, first of all, gently, help the family realize that the problems are in the parents and not in the kid, so we can move away from kid services and get them into adult services. There are plenty of mental health services for adults. Actually, the mental health system for adults is actually more developed and better funded than the youth service side. So I think we can do that, but the project itself is really for that. Again,
For the kids,
but anytime you're dealing with kids, you have to deal with the adults. They're not independent. you
yeah,
know.
no,
And
absolutely.
so no matter what it is, we have therapeutic group homes. It requires us, and we should, do family therapy. When we talk about in-home services, what we're doing, so one of the things the project focuses on is can we, instead of placing the kid, can we bring the kid back home and support the family to work out their problems without being separated? And to do that, the approach most of the providers in the city do, in the community, is what we call psychoeducation. So educate parents to how kids develop, because they probably didn't study it before they got a kid. So how to help them understand how kids attach, how you attach, how kids behave, why they're in conflict with you. That there's some logic to that, as much as illogical it feels, or as bad as it feels. So a big part of in-home services is actually educating parents to be able to do their job better. I have no doubt that I don't think there are parents we work with that don't love their kids, but not a lot of parents, not all parents have the skills to be parents. They're not, it's just because having a baby doesn't make you a parent, it just makes you.
No, I agree totally.
It just makes you responsible.
Yeah, but I think kids is something, to me, it's the biggest gift we receive from the Spirit.
Right.
And it's, I mean, in my view as a mother, it's not something you need to mold. You need to watch them, guide them, and keep them safe, and then let them be who they are supposed to be, you
Right.
know. So how do people, we're gonna ask again about your website where people can get help, and also phone number, either one, people can call and explain what the problem is and get some information and some resources. Can you let us know the website and also
Yes.
the phone number again?
Yep. So it's the Missoula Youth Crisis Project.org.
Okay,
That's how you get to the website, www. And you can call us. Actually, the one thing I didn't bring was there's actually a phone number for the project that I don't have with me, so my bad.
well, maybe
But
you can,
you can call the youth homes, and we can relay you to that phone number. I apologize.
And the
we're in the
number?
process of going, so the youth homes is 406-721-2704.
721-2704. What kind of services do you have a family in crisis?
Sure.
What are all the different kind of
Right.
services you can
So
offer?
so again, the project. So again, I want to be clear, the project is something that we host as youth homes, but we actually have involved 21 agencies.
Yeah.
It includes all the mental health centers in Missoula County who work with youth and families. So they're all involved, and they're all important. So here's how the project works, is, so so we're in the process of developing a 24-hour response, so that if a crisis occurs, someone can at least answer the phone and talk to the family about it. Whether to tell them to come to the hospital, and you do need to hospitalize your kid, you need to call 911, or you need to be patient, and we'll have someone call you. So right now, given the funding, we can guarantee a family that we'll be in their home if they welcome us within the first business day after the call. So if it's a weekday, tomorrow. If it's Friday night, unfortunately, it's Monday.
Monday.
Right.
So-
that's the first thing. And what we send out there, we call it a crisis facilitator. So they're an independent contractor. They're not employed by any of the mental health centers. And they go in there, and just like the website, except now in person, they interview, talk with the family, talk with the
Assess
kid.
the
Assess the
situation.
situation, and make them aware of what the services are, including what the services that aren't available, I mean. So again, their job is to make the family available to all the services so that they have a voice and they have a choice. The emphasis is in home services. We're not trying to build more beds at the youth homes. We're trying to keep families together. So the first thing we want to do is say, look, here are the in-home services. Well, first of all, here's counseling. Have you had counseling? And if they say, well, yeah, but it didn't work, well, tell me about that. So that's the first thing is, is counseling going to work? And hopefully our facilitators are very talented. They're master's level people. They're very qualified. They may help the family realize that sending your kid to therapy doesn't work, but family therapy might work. Then in-home services, where we go in and do what I was talking about earlier, that's the biggest emphasis. If the family is in crisis and just dissolving and living together just makes it worse for now, then they can get access through the project for short placement in a shelter where the kid can be safe, the family can start breathing, and we can start putting them back together again. And you can do that. And we can provide up to the limits of our budget. It's not a big grant, but it's 14 days, up to 14 days. But it's not automatically. It's just
Depending on
just
how the
depending.
person does.
So there's 2 shelters in Missoula. I think most people know both of them, but so the youth homes operates one for teenagers called the Missoula Attention Home, and then Watson Children's Shelter. And so we can get access to those if their bed's available and allow a kid to spend a couple of days sort of reflecting on what do they want to do, and the family gets a chance to sort of focus on what they want to do. So those are the services that sort of introduce people into services. And again, our goal is to not have them get lost finding a service, but able to find it at the right time,
Yeah.
so that maybe we can make a difference. And sometimes we're going to find that their kid does need treatment, does need a residential placement, but the project is really designed to divert kids from being out of their homes.
Yeah. What range of age do you work with?
I think I should know this. The average age of the kids have been 12.
But you cover,
But
if
they can
somebody
be
is,
as young as, they can easily be as young as 4 or 5 and as old as 17.
and so is there a legal age when they turn 18, they can't,
Right, if they're not, the only 18-year-olds that can be in the system are kids that are wards of the state and haven't
All right.
graduated high school. So if you're working with child welfare, but of course they wouldn't necessarily need the crisis project because they have access, but they can work with and follow a kid till they're 18 or graduates high school, whichever comes later. Yeah.
how many kids usually go through your system in a month?
Through the crisis
Yeah.
project? So the crisis project is a small grant, so what we've tried to do is, what we're really doing is trying to work at developing how it actually will work. It's more developmental than it is a full-fledged system. So we've been sort of hesitant to make it too big because the money in the grant wouldn't pay for everything. So on an average month, we're working with maybe 8 kids and their families, eight families at the most.
Okay, and you have 2 houses for crisis in Missoula?
2
for
shelters.
kids,
2
two
shelters.
shelters.
So a shelter, by definition, is short-term placement for kids in crisis.
To have
The
them
other group-
safe
Yeah,
and-
there are other residential homes in Missoula that we operate, that AWARE operates, another organization, but they're long-term, and they're mostly kids that, that's a long story, but anyway, so the only 2 emergency placements in a group home are those 2. And we'll have to figure it out, are there other things we can do? Can we do emergency foster care to help with kids that maybe it's more appropriate to be there than in a congregate care? But right now, we're just trying to figure it out. As we were talking before, in my career, I've seen a shift from how we see kids, and mental health it's been around for a long time. It actually, before 1988, 1990, there weren't a lot of mental health services for kids. We tended to see kids as abused or bad or in trouble, and this has been a really slow evolving service system that's not really a system yet. And so I think our
But we're starting to recognize that
Well,
actually
it's-
kids can also,
Right. And you can see in the legislature where, they wanted to get They didn't want to fund institutions, they wanted to fund mental health services. As conservative as everybody said the legislature was going to be, the big bills that passed in human services were mental health bills, mostly adults, but this was part of it. This crisis project was funded this time by the legislature. What they intend is in 2 years, this will be rolled into Medicaid.
Oh,
so
that would be,
Right, so that all families would have access that are on Medicaid. And we're talking to insurance companies about the same thing as, insurance companies aren't stupid. They know what a hospital costs to put a kid.
yes,
And if we can demonstrate that we're gonna reduce the number of hospitalizations for Blue Cross Blue Shield, trust me,
they'll be happy because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all about the money for them,
Well, I think it's
unfortunately,
more
to
than
a
that.
certain
Well,
level.
I have to say that, everybody's talking about the community hospital sale, right? Well, Blue Cross Blue Shield converted to a for-profit, and they've taken all the money of the proceeds of that sale into a healthcare foundation in Montana, and they just put out a request for proposals to develop mental health services for people in Montana.
Well, I'm so glad you're saying that. I'm really happy about
Yeah.
that.
I just think I'm not one of those people. I think we gotta stop fighting and we gotta realize that everybody, whether I agree with everybody else, is they're not meaner than I am. They're just think differently than I do. And I really think, I think the legislature did a pretty good job of some people realizing that we need to put down the D and the R and do something. And there are things they didn't do, but they did more than we would have ever guessed, given the
Good.
diversity. I mean, it seemed like people seem angrier than ever before. We were talking about this. If we want our kids to be healthier, we got to stop being mad at each other.
Well, and that's the big thing in my book, I mean, I
Right.
talk about anger, and me, I love the energy. I don't like anger, but if we can stop a little bit before we get angry and feel the energy we generate within us, and we can use that energy to build something rather than destroy something, that to me,
Right.
that is the power behind anger.
Right.
And so it's an emotion that we need to control and be aware of the gift behind it, which is that power. And if you can channel that power into
Right.
building something rather than destroying, we would be a lot better off.
Right, right.
So, what are your biggest challenge?
Oh, boy. Well, I think for the project, I think it's just, I don't know about, the biggest challenge is to figure out, can you take a shelter and a hospital and put it side by side and not have the needs of a family and a child fall between them? Is shelter, is there something we need in our shelter that would close the gap if there is one? I think that's a big challenge. Obviously, funding's a big challenge.
Yeah.
And wherever, and then how things are funded. So we don't have universal health care. We don't have universal health care coverage. Everybody has different health care coverage. So sometimes when you look at this project and say we're going to do it all through mental health, some insurance has very limited menu of mental health services.
Yeah.
And others, the Medicaid is actually a rich menu. It's not a system yet, but there's a lot of different things compared to what you do in the private sector. And so I think that's a challenge, is how do we fund it in a way that's easier access? And how do we be accountable to that so that somebody says, well, we're just wasting money doing that? I think those are the challenges. And then the fact is that, people are going to struggle probably no matter what you do. And we have to do our best, and we have to stay the course, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like not every, people who don't do the work that we do, they kind of think if we just tell people we care, they're supposed to thank us for that and get
Well, you
better.
got to give them tools also to
Right.
be able to handle those problems.
But sometimes they just aren't going to make that move now. Sometimes you're going to grow up later. So if I could tell you
Yeah.
a really quick story. So I came here a long, long time ago, and we had, I don't know, they were some of the toughest girls, just tough, like big, strong, powerful young girls. And they were difficult, and it was just kind of cool. So the whole time that they were in the Attention Home, which is our shelter, they were difficult. And maybe 3 years later, I got a call from them. They were in Utah. Both of them had wound up in Salt Lake. And one was working in a cafe, and the other one came for a cup of coffee. And they went out, they decided that, well, they should go out for coffee themselves and talk. So they called me, and they were now 21 years old, and they called me to say, we heard you.
Nice.
And I think that's the thing is, you know, adolescence is a tough time. Everybody says to them, these are the best years of your life. That's crazy. They're one of the worst years of your life.
I agree.
And-
They will
and-
all agree with you too.
Oh, but everybody thinks we're gonna fix it all, that kids are all gonna be happy and kids are all gonna be satisfied. No one's gonna get cut from the basketball team, and no one's gonna get the lead of the play. And they're gonna fight with their parents because girls are gonna try not to be their mothers for a while because they wonder who they are, and moms are gonna get their feelings hurt, and dads are gonna feel bad because their son doesn't wanna be just like their dad. Eventually they will. That's the curse of being a kid. You will eventually look like your mother.
And you,
But-
yeah.
But so my point about it is I think that's the biggest challenge, is everybody wants us to have a perfect story, and I've said, people will say to you, tell a 5-minute story, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, you know, there's 5-minute moments, but there's a lifetime. And we're gonna bump into things, and we're gonna struggle, and we're gonna have horrible things happen. So I guess that's the biggest challenge, is people
It's life, it's called life,
I know
you
that, but everybody wants that for somebody
Yeah.
else. Everybody else wants I coach soccer, and all the parents want their kids to land on satin pillows. You know, they don't wanna not, and so the challenge is, it's not gonna happen that way, and not all the kids that come are gonna be grateful. You know what I mean? And so my
Well-
point is, our challenge is to just stay the course, tell them what they need to hear, and hope that someday, whether it's today or it's when they're 21 or when they're 30 or they're 50, that they hear it, and then we've given them the right message.
Yeah, and the fact of life is, you know, we're gonna face big challenges.
Right.
People call it stress. I don't, because
It's life.
just the word is, but when we just using different word like challenge to me
Right.
gonna bring me out. I'm competitive.
Right.
I can take it. You tell stress, it's the opposite, you know. So communication is probably a big tool in your organization too. Maybe certain word gonna get those teenagers that they're gonna remember
Right.
years down the line, and like that little
I
story.
want to go back, you're talking about language, and, you know, in Chinese, the word crisis is synonymous with opportunity.
Yeah, and that's it. That's
Right.
exactly what I'm
And
talking
so that's what I
about.
think about the project, is we have an opportunity to intervene, to give them a different way to view it, for them to see each other differently, to realize it's not the kid's problem or the parent's problem, it's their problem. And if we can do that, like I said, it's not gonna be easy to fix it. Obviously, by the time they call us, it's still gonna be late.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people, you know, they want to think it's okay, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, and often it's always going to be late. But I think the project's had really good success. We've served almost 80 plus families, and all but 2 of them have been able to keep their kids at home.
Wonderful.
So-
So we're getting close
I know.
to the end of the
Yeah.
show. Again, we have with us Jeff Burnbaum, so I'm even worse because I can blame it on my French.
Well, it took him 5 times, don't worry.
And I am Françoise White, co-host for Right Now TV, the author of the Little Toolbox for Anxiety, Anger, Depression, and Guilt. So thank you for being with us. Hope you did enjoy the show, and we will see you again.
That was marvelous, marvelous. We want to thank our distinguished co-host, Mrs. Francois White, for that extraordinary interview with the executive director, Jeff Birnbaum, from the Youth Homes Incorporated. He's also the executive director of the Youth Crisis Project. They're doing marvelous work in the state of Montana. We applaud their efforts. They have our support. Any way we can be of service, sir, we'd be honored. anytime you want to get on to come back and if you have a public service announcement, something, or you got a new a fundraiser or a benefit that you'd like to announce, this is your show. We're here to work with you, to partner with you, and to support you. We again want to thank you for the great contributions you've been making in our community, throughout our nation, and for our youth. On behalf of our young people, do you have a final thought you might want to leave with our with our babies before we go off the air?
I think I'm good, actually. That's as much as I probably have to say for now. But I'll be back.
Amen. Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He will be back. Jeff, again, we want to thank you for coming to the show. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, we wish you the best. Here, if you will, give us the number, the address for those who may want to volunteer to support the Youth Homes Incorporated, and how they may be able to also support you financially.
Sure. So the phone number is 406-721-2704, and the mailing address is Box 7616, Missoula, Montana, 59807.
Give us that phone number again, please, sir.
Phone number 406-721-2704. That was a test, wasn't it, to get it right again?
Again, we were honored to have Jeff Birnbaum, the executive director of the Youth Homes, Inc., to appear on our guest, to appear as our guest on the Right Now television show.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Thank you, sir.